you cannot come to me now and tell me that I do not deserve to be a wealthy man or to live in abundance, because I paid the price of my yesterday so that my tomorrow can be much better. And you must know exactly where you want to go when you set up a business. So right from the first day that I went into setting up Finatrust, the first set of things was to put in place corporate governance. Because once you have a strong corporate governance, it enables you to understand that there are checks and balances. Culture always eats strategies. So irrespective of whatever strategy you have, your structure is strong enough to be able to develop beyond the first or second or third generations. Part of the challenges with Nigerian business is the fact that a whole lot of us don't like to be checked, don't like to be corrected. Ensure you pay your payee in terms of taxes. Ensure you do not defraud your customers. Ensure as much as possible that whatever it is that is documented, you follow it to the latter, even with your staff. But one of the things that I realized that a lot of us do not pay attention to are what you call the intrinsic values. And those intrinsic values are the things that money can buy. And you know what they are? Simple things like integrity.
Welcome to the show, Building Wealth with Femi. I am your host, Femi Rogers. This show is about building wealth. In this show, we're going to learn from successful businessmen who are seasoned and have had a lot of experience and have grown their businesses. So if you want to learn how to build wealth, you should be on this show. Today, we have as our guest, Mr. Adedeji Popoola, a retired businessman in the finance industry. He used to be the CEO of Finatrust Bank, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a big one. You are retired and you look like you are in your 40s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people tell me I look like Son. People tell me I look
40-something.
But the truth again is really, I'm retired, but I'm not tired. I retired at my 50th birthday. So I'm well over my 50s. And that's one of the things that retiring early does for you. It gives an opportunity to recalibrate and take care of yourself and then ask yourself, what's the next thing for you in life? What do you want to do next? The first 25, 26 years of my life was me chasing passion, was me chasing career. But right now, it's about work-life balance. Things that are much more important than money to me. My family, my kids, my legacy, my faith, my ministry, my health. So that's the stage that I am in life now.
Interesting. You sound to me like somebody that was privileged. Is privileged. Retiring at 50. That's very unusual for a Nigerian. You must have made a lot of money. Maybe you come from, family with a lot of wealth. You really don't have to work like we have to.
Okay, so first of all, let me clear those doubts and those impressions. I come from a family that has a lot of wealth. But the wealth is not in terms of financials. I come from a family that has a lot of love to give. My both parents were bankers. Okay. And in the course of growing up, I was privileged to go to very beautiful, lovely schools. I went to Adrawi International. And from there, I went to Baptist Academy. And Baptist Academy being a boys' school only, and a missionary school, became a major element in my formative years.
Obanikoro.
In Obanikoro, and then from there, I went to the best university in Nigeria, Ife. And then thereafter, I went for my master's. I did my MBA. I went to Harvard. I went to University of Cape Town. So, that's that. And then in the course of it, I'm a qualified accountant. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. I'm also a member of Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. So basically, I've had a career in finance and banking for almost 28 years. I'm retired, but I'm not tired.
So I think to be getting something wrong here, because I don't know what exactly you meant by you are retired. A lot of people say they are retired. Even people in their 70s and 80s, they are retired, but they have a new business. They have to go to the office in the morning, spend like 1 or 2 hours to make sure things are going on. So what do you mean retired? Retired like you are not doing business anymore, or you have businesses you oversee, but maybe you're not physically there, but you're on the phone.
Okay, so sometimes people get it confused when I say I'm a retiree. But the reality is, I became a chief executive at 35. And then I started my own bank at 37. And in the course of my journey of life, I realized that to some extent, if you do not put things in place, I'm just going to continue to be a slave to money. Because I wake up every day, I'm chasing same of the same, I'm dancing around on cycles. So at about 14, 15 years thereafter, we decided that, look, we must put in place a strong corporate governance that also enables you to put in place a strong management process. And in the course of it, you develop leaders as a leader yourself. And on my 50th birthday, I had to ask certain questions. What is next for me? What do I need to do? And I realized that, okay, being the founder of Finatrust and having found the right set of people to work with me, to work for me, I felt it was the best time for me to exit and start something different. And it's starting something different. Today, I say that I do not even sit on the board of Finatrust. I do not even oversee. I don't even get to go there, except if there is something that needs my attention, because there is a strong corporate governance and a strong management in place. Okay, so that is it. However, leaving Finatrust also opened up other opportunities and things that I presently do. Okay, and those things are far more important than money. And that's exactly what I do right now.
That's interesting. I know that ideally, most business owners want to set up a structure that can work by itself so that they can back up and allow that business to work and generate income, residual income, without having actually been input. Ideally, that's what you should do. But there are challenges in Nigeria. I don't know how you overcame it. And I know people that have businesses in Nigeria, they put people in place, they train them, but as soon as they make a U-turn, those people are doing something different. How did you set up a structure that can work without you? What are the checks and balances?
Okay, so one of the things I say is you must know exactly where you want to go when you set up a business. From the beginning, Finatrust was not set up to make money. It was set up because there was a gap, there was a lacuna in the market. I've been privileged to have been the group head of retail and commercial banking in EcoBank. And then thereafter I became chief executive of one of the first set of microfinance banks. And some of the things I learned in the course of it made me realize that, look, hey, you can continue to do the same thing on a regular basis. So right from the first day that I went into setting up Finatrust, the first set of things was to put in place corporate governance. Because once you have a strong corporate governance, what it does, it enables you to understand that there are checks and balances. As the managing director, you're subjected to the rules of the board. So you cannot, especially when you have a very effective board. So once you have that, the board are the ones that makes the policy. So even you, your chief, as a chief executive, you have controls, you have checks, okay? And then thereafter, you put in place an internal structure. So you have your compliance unit, you have your internal control, you have your financial control, you have your HR. And I'll give a typical example, okay? Part of it is in Finatrust, you wear white shirts, you wear blue shirts. So whether I'm there or not, people know it's our culture. We wear white and blue. Part of it is the fact that we do not open our doors, okay, without saying prayers. So that is what leadership does. Once people have seen you do it again and again and again, it becomes part and parcel of the system and it becomes a culture. And in most instances, I tell people, culture always eats strategies. So irrespective of whatever strategy you have, your structure is strong enough to be able to develop beyond the first or second or third generations. And then it continues.
You make it sound easy, but I know it's not that easy. Would you please tell us some of the challenges? The way you said it, you put in the structures and the people follow the structure. People have businesses here. They set up structure, and then you have people not abiding by the policies. It's all over the place in Nigeria. I'm not sure if maybe you have people that are not Nigerians working with you. I'm sure this is not unusual. I'm sure it's not unusual to you. So what are the challenges? What we want to know is, what are the issues you had when you were putting this together?
Okay, so challenges are every day of human endeavor. If I come and sit and tell you, there are no challenges, I'll be lying. And you still face those challenges on a regular basis. But one of the first set of things you must put in place, first of all, is to understand that you are the one that's going to watch yourself and no one else. Majority of Nigerians.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you?
You are the one that's going to watch yourself. You know why? If you do not control yourself, like they say sometimes, if you don't control yourself, if you don't check yourself, you're going to wreck yourself. Now, in checking yourself means you do things in conformity with what the policies are. And I give everybody a simple analogy. Salary is meant to be paid on the 27th. Don't pay me on the 24th as CEO. Okay? Don't increase my salary arbitrarily. Once you stick to simple rules, everything that applies to every other person, let it apply to me. If I'm entitled to 21 days, okay, as holiday, I shouldn't go for 25 days. If I'm entitled to one car, I shouldn't take 3 cars. If I'm entitled to simple things, let it be documented. Once people realize that even the CEO cannot, for example, take his hands and just dip it into the coffin of the business, then they realize that, oh, I can't do the same. Secondly, you must also understand that there are people that will check you. Part of the challenges with Nigerian businesses is the fact that a whole lot of us don't like to be checked, don't like to be corrected. So if I was privileged, and I use the word very privileged, to have a very strong board, and I give a lot of credit to my chairman, Pastor Itu Agodalo, because he's a man of faith and a man of high integrity. He actually did help to put a lot of these things in place to say, look, ensure you pay your payee in terms of taxes. Ensure you do not defraud your customers. Ensure as much as possible that whatever it is that is documented, you follow it to the letter, even with your staff. Ensure that you have things like simple delayed gratification. I tell people, there was a time that as chief executive, my salary did not increase for 8 years. I did not collect dividend because every money I was making, I was putting it back in the business because of my latter days. Now, you cannot come to me now and tell me that I do not deserve to be, okay, a wealthy man or to live in abundance, because I paid the price of my yesterday so that my tomorrow can be much better. And that's some of the simple rules.
Interesting. So you moved from being in the finance industry to retirement. You must have been a very busy person as the CEO of that kind of a person. I am interested to know how you were able to change. So I've known about people that are retired today and, in a week's time, they find themselves walking into the office because they don't have anything doing at home. Some of them even fall sick because, they are used to working. How did you manage this?
Okay, so initially you'll struggle. But you see, part of the things you must also understand is the fact that you have a purpose in life. There's a difference between passion and purpose. At a point, I felt my purpose for that particular time, had come to an end. And I needed to get into the next space of my life. I struggled with it. I was used to doing a particular type of routine on a regular basis. But I also needed to change my mentality. Now, my days in Finatrust were some of my busiest times, or some of my most interesting times. But they're not even as interesting as the time that I have right now.
Retirement.
In my retirement. Because even in my retirement, I'm extremely busy. Okay? And why do I say so? I live every day right now, okay, for a legacy. Okay? I live every day right now for the things that are much more important than money. For example, my family. When I was in Finatrust, as CEO, as founder, okay, my Monday to Sunday was all around Finatrust. Today, my family comes first. I make sure I'm in that space where I'm able to speak to my kids, where I'm able to see my kids. I can take vacation 2-3 times in a year and go see my kids abroad and ensure that they're doing well. Because my biggest blessing and the measurement of my success in life is not going to be Finatrust. I can always sell Finatrust. I can always buy another bank, but I can never sell my children. I can never buy my children. And those are things that are very critical for me. And the prayer again is, as I'm bigger than my parents, let my kids be bigger than me. So if I'm not able to provide those support systems for my kids, my first 2 kids are in university in Toronto. The question is, how would I have been seen as a successful dad? I can be a successful banker, but am I a successful family man? What about my responsibilities to my wife? What about my responsibilities to my family? What about my responsibility to my community? What about my responsibility to my community people? What about my responsibility to my people of faith? Okay, so right now, I find myself very, very busy. But most importantly is also the fact that, and I say this again and again, even when I was in Finatrust, I had other responsibilities and other things that I was doing. I was privileged to be the technical advisor to Senate Committee on Health. So I was still also involved in, advocacy and making laws and other things. I was involved in a couple of other businesses. But today, okay, I'm very busy, but I'm very balanced. I choose to determine what is important to me. And I put it in terms of my priority determination. What do I want to chase? Like, for example, in 2025, I determine what are the 6-7 major things important to me. And the first thing I put is my spirituality, my faith with my maker. I'm in my 50s. The number of years that I've spent already is not going to be as much as I'm going to spend again. What does eternity hold for me? The second one is my family. How well am I totally in tune with the dictates and the aspirations of my children, of my wife? Am I there for them as a father? Am I there for my wife as a husband? Am I there for my younger ones as a brother? Okay, as an uncle, as a niece. So some of these things are pretty important. And then most importantly, for myself now, what is important? So I can wake up right now at 7:30, decide to take a 1.5 hours walk, come back home, swim in my house, and then determine what time I want to go to church, or I want to go to work or go to anywhere. It's based on my timing. And I realize that because I've been able to now dictate and determine what is important, I have a whole lot of peace of mind. But guess what? I'm still making money.
From what you've said, I realize you are a very you have spiritual person. Or you're dedicated to your faith, your family. You spoke about your community as well. I really want to know, people like you that have a lot of experience. You've been in the corporate world. You've established a business. How are you impacting your community, the younger ones that are coming behind you? Your knowledge, your experience, all those things you've gathered, do you have anything going on for the younger generation?
Okay, so when I say my community, it's both the close community and the expanded community. And today I sit on the board of nothing less than 6-7 organizations. And part of what I do is also to share knowledge. And part of what I also do is mentoring. And I was joking with a friend of mine that I said, I think it's high time I did my PhD program. And once I'm done with that PhD program, one of the things I like to do is to teach life. And in teaching life is basically to come from a very practical angle of how to be able to mentor a lot of people. Yes. And I feel this generation needs that. People that you can say, look, I made these mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes in the course of growing up, in terms of relationship, in terms of dealing with kids, in terms of handling business, in terms of dealing with anger, in terms of dealing with ego, in terms of dealing with faith, in terms of even dealing with money. Now, the opportunity I have right now is the fact that I see a whole lot of younger people that are looking for some of those opportunities, and I give it freely. I say, come out. The Bible says you've been given freely, so should you also give. And in the course of it, I realized I get a lot of satisfaction just seeing some of those businesses that I started just months ago or 1-2 years ago now booming, and they're becoming better. And for me, I think that's where some of the inner satisfaction comes from. And I do a whole lot of it easily.
You're from the finance industry. You know, one of the biggest challenges for startups in Nigeria is funding, businesses, funding. You, for one reason or the other, you've been in the industry, you got yourself in there, you were able to start up a bank. I don't know if it was easier then, but now funding is very difficult. How would you advise that a startup or a business owner is starting up a new business is going to position himself for funding, whether it's going to be institutional funding or it's going to be private funding from investors? What are your experience in this industry? How are you able to put this together, and how would you advise the upcoming starters?
So Femi, the reality is, and I say this, yes, funding is a major problem for startups. Funding is a major problem even for existing business. But one of the things that I realized that a lot of us do not pay attention to are what you call the intrinsic values. And those intrinsic values are the things that money can buy. And you know what they are? Simple things like integrity. So I give a typical example. If you knew a guy while you were in university together, that was very, using the word lau, very arrogant, very garrulous. And he comes to you and says he has business. There's a tendency for you, first of all, to be a little bit, hey, what's going on there? Because you're going to kick back to some of the things that used to happen in your yesteryears. Or if you know a guy that while you're in university or in secondary school, the guy used to pilfer, the guy used to do drugs or used to do this. There's a tendency that when it comes to you, a little bit hesitant. Okay, so part of the challenge is again is the fact that if you cannot get your immediate family to believe in what you do, then it's a challenge. In the course of my starting of Finatrust, one of the best things that happened to me was that I had people that believed in me. Whatever it is that you think was tough then, it's even much more tougher now because there are a lot of people that have money, but they do not have too many people to invest in. Because we have a whole lot of generations of people that do not have integrity, that do not understand that life is not always, about now. So you have people that will tell you 1 + 1 is equals to 2. But the reality is in their mind that 1 + 1 is not 2, is 11. So you find some of those challenges. And I say that the banks are in the business of intermediation. They are looking for the excess and they want to give to the deficient. So you're in arbitrage. That means I've taken money from the likes of Femi as deposits. And I'm looking for the likes of Simisola to give to as a loan. And then I make my spread.
Available.
Now, there are not too many of them available because a lot of them do not have businesses that you can truly say they are sustainable. It's all about now. So you tell somebody, okay, please, can you give me your statements of accounts? And you realize that in the statement of accounts, there are practically almost nothing for you to see. Okay, how do you pay salaries? You pay salaries by cash. Okay, how do you settle obligations to people? By rent, for example, rent.
No transparency.
So it becomes a challenge for bankers, even when you want to deal with the SME space. So the lack of data and a proper credit scheme, makes it almost difficult for even the so-called finance people to be able to invest.
Could it be that it is unintentional for this? Some of these business people they do not have a structured environment. They did not work. I started business on my own. I never worked with any organization. I had to learn how to put structure, how to, all these things you're talking about. A lot of businesses are like that today. They have to learn it. Could it be that people do not know or understand how to put this together and, to approach a bank, put it the right structure, and, to allow them access funding?
I agree with you. And I think that is where we, and I'm using the word we bankers now and finance people need to do more. We need to be able to understand that business is not a microwave thing that you put it in and it comes out immediately. I think there's a need for a higher level of patience. But most importantly, I think we also have higher level of calling to say is, you know what, we need to be able to put together, averaging on a yearly basis, certain level or certain numbers of entrepreneurs in the various stratas of the economy, whether it's healthcare, whether it is FMCGs, whether it is, name it, the creative space and all this. And says, you know what, part of our responsibility is we want to educate you. We want to help you to be able to put structures in place. And we're going to do this pro bono. And I think that is where we failed. And in all sincerity, yes, some of those deficiencies are there, not by the acts and deliberate intentions of the owners of the business, but they're also the ones that you can actually realize that these are deliberate, premeditated, case of failure or case of just not bothering. And if you want to know, ask 7 out of 10 businessmen everywhere in the world, and it's not peculiar to Nigeria, so let me be specific. 7 out of 10 of them do not have a simple business plan. A whole lot of people start businesses because Simisola does it well. A lot of people start businesses because Femi does it well. So you find out that when you begin to look at it, you're finding yourself comparing oranges with apples. And yes, they're in the same business, but things are not aligning. So it becomes a challenge.
So you spoke about integrity, and it's a key factor for people that wants to raise funds. They have to kind of build trust, people should know them, that they can perform. But you also said that it seems that a lot of people nowadays, that factor, integrity, is not available. I know that back in the days, our parents, integrity is a big thing. You don't steal, you don't lie. Do you think there's a cultural change? Do you think there's a problem? There's something that has happened somewhere in between that we have these issues with the younger generation or the people now? Or do you think actually back in the days, they had the integrity problem as well?
Okay, so the problem is multidimensional. And I'm not going to sit here and come and claim to be a saint. I've faltered in many areas when it comes to integrity as well. I've made mistakes. But one of the things is, once you realize you made a mistake, is the ability not to repeat it again. And I give you a typical example. The government says, okay, this is a one way. Don't go against it. It's a simple test of integrity. As basic and as simple as that. But coming back to the cultural aspect of it, I think everywhere in the world, we face a bigger problem because of social media. I'm an unapologetic Yoruba man. And Yoruba will say it, that you grew up in an environment in which your father is just not your father alone. Your uncle is your father. The community is your father. So if they see something with you that is not yours, somebody can ask you questions. It's an aberration and unacceptable that you're a 21-year-old girl and you're driving a car while in school, and yet it's not your father that has bought it, or your mother. And your mother does not challenge you. Your father does not challenge you. I mean, those are things that never used to exist. And I'll give you a typical example. I remember maybe about 5 years or 6 years ago, I'd gone to see my dad. And it was on a Sunday. And my dad had asked me, "Oh, Deji, I just saw you driving a particular car in." And I told him, "Yes, Dad, I wanted to show you, it was my G-Wagon and blah, blah, blah." And I was so excited. And so it's okay, nice car. And my father got downstairs, looked at it. And then at 12 o'clock, midnight, my phone rang. My dad says, "Deji, I'd like to talk to you." And I knew there was a problem. Because all my years, if my dad calls at 12 o'clock or he wakes me up at 12 o'clock,
there's a problem.
That's a problem. Is either he wants to beat or he wants to have a one-to-one conversation. And my dad says, "Do you think as a banker you should be using a G-Wagon?" I was like, "Dad, it's my money. I made money from this." He says, "I'm just saying." And then he says, "What did you do to make that money?" Now, I was someone in my mid-40s. I was a chief executive. And here is my dad asking me to be accountable. How many of such parents do we have? So if you live in a generation and in a time where we're no longer becoming accountable as parents, as uncles, as mothers, as fathers, then we should hold ourselves responsible, because it's not the kids, it is us that has failed the society.
Some people, you will say that that's not quite right. You know, I mean, it might be old fashioned. We spoke about Lao, social media. Nowadays, people have to flaunt. People that actually get to make the money are the ones that come online, flaunt the new cars. Businessmen, they are known to be busy businessmen, flaunt cars, they buy Rolls Royce, buys everything, they make a lot of noise, have a lot of parties. This is the way things are done now. It could be that you are old fashioned. This is the way people make money now. You have to show what you have. Okay. And make people know. I mean, I've had a conversation with somebody earlier on that is saying, even if you want to get a contract or you want to do a business and you go there, you must park a big car outside so that they can see you, even if you have borrowed the car. Things have changed.
Well, I mean, the truth again is we are very quick to adopt the negative part to say things have changed. But again, there's still a whole lot of models we can use. You don't need to be loud to make it. You don't need to display so much of opulence to show you've made it. And I'm sorry to say, I mean, again, I'm going to use the Yoruba proverb. It is only the empty ones that make so much noise. I mean, if you say a Mark Zuckerberg, he's not going to get into a G-Wagon just to show anybody's made it. A Jeff Bezos will not do that. People that are running legitimate businesses in this part of the world, even in Nigeria, you not see them. I'm sorry to say. From time to time, I get to see Dangote. Yeah. He drives himself on a Sunday. He doesn't have so many people after him. In fact, most times he drives himself quietly. Same with Femi Otedola. The people that are showing that have made it are those that are trying to convince people of what they do not have. And that's the reality. And I say it again, it doesn't really change what our true values is. You trying to fake it to make it, at the end of the day, is a lie. And like Yoruba would say, still about God. So the lie that you've lied, number one, you've lied to yourself. You've lied to people. At the end of the day, when you sell a lie, you need to buy another lie to make up for that lie. So why are you deceiving? You show everybody you've made it outside, but internally you are lacking, you are leaking. So the man that is supposed to assist you already sees you. What you make? So if I come to your office, for example, I come with a big car that is not mine, how am I supposed to assist you?
I mean, I believe that a lot of people that look big get more assistance, because I mean, I have seen, and I had a conversation with somebody earlier today. I've been an entrepreneur like you right from the beginning. And I remember, having started businesses and, worked hard for over 10, 15 years. I know somebody that I know that every time I go out to work very early in the morning, I come back, he's at home sitting down. And someday he went to Abuja and he got a big contract to become an oil and gas person. He never worked for about 15, 17 years. I started a factory, but he was still able to make it further. And I see a lot of this happen with people. What they do is they package themselves for business. That's why people buy big cars. They appear big, and because they give them big contract. Do you think this can be balanced? Do you think it should be balanced? A smart businessman nowadays have to balance it. They have to show a lot. Because this is what Nigerians believe in.
So the question is, how many of such guys truly are successful in the world successful? You have 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 1,000,000 that is lucky to have someone that has the right connect in Abuja that I said, okay, but those are not truly legitimate businesses. They are not sustainable business. If you tell me the person does oil and gas, in which of the oil and gas? Is it upstream or downstream? And that's the reality. I'm still saying it again. I still know a whole lot of people that are still doing businesses that will not do lao. Because again, for us, even as financiers, as bankers, when you want to go and collect money from a customer and you go in, for example, in a big car, the customer is going to ask himself, is my money safe? That's the truth. When you want to go and give money to someone and the man sees you also in a very big car, he's also telling himself, if I take this money, is my own part of national cake. So you need to also be able to understand and balance why in banking and in accounting and in law, they give you codes that you cannot do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, because the businesses are meant to be professional and moderate. Okay, so if I find, for example, a banker that comes to me and wears so much of rings, so much of jewelry, so much of this, so much of that, I would ask questions. Are you sure my money is safe? And those are the realities that we must continuously instill in our people, that moderation is key. I'm not saying don't package if you must package. I mean, the truth is, at the end of the day, who are you really deceiving? Because you must ask yourself, who are you really deceiving? What you don't own it. That's the truth. If I, for example, because I want to go to a party, Femi, my friend, lives in America and has invited me, and I decide to go and rent a vehicle or loan someone's vehicle to go and impress Femi. The truth is, Femi will look at me, but Femi is smart enough also to understand that something is not adding up.
Something is not right.
Tomorrow, am I going to have that? Am I going to go and borrow that person's car again? Day after tomorrow. So I'm still clearly saying it again, that fake it till you make it does not exist in my own dictionary. It might exist for someone else, but it doesn't work for me. I remember when I started Finatrust, I used to use my wife's car under CRV. And that was a car used for almost 2 years. And people used to make fun of me because sometimes the car would stop on the road. In fact, at a point, I remember that some of my colleagues would call the car staff boss. And they'll say, MD, your other colleagues are doing this, they're doing that. And I'll say, it is time for me to sow, because that is what my faith tells me. When it is time for me to reap, I will reap. Today, by God's grace, it's my season to reap. And I live in abundance by God's grace.
Interesting and insightful. Fake it till you make it. It shouldn't be the right way. Integrity is very key in business, especially if you are going to be trying to raise money. And you should also have a transparent way of doing business. So let everybody see what you are doing. Your statement of accounts should show clearly, how you did business if you are going to bring in investors. It's been a very interesting conversation, Mr. Adedeji. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. I hope that you'll be able to bring you back some other time to continue. And I hope my audience have learned a lot from this. But thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Femi. It's been a pleasure being on this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the kind of experienced entrepreneurs that we invite to this kind of podcast, and we're going to have another one coming up very soon. Stay tuned.